Hi, everybody. I'm Ross DeFalls, and welcome to MFS in the Hub. I want to welcome all my affiliates, YouTube, and what else do we have, Casey? Facebook. We're on everything. Instagram. You name it, we're on it. But we have unbelievable picks today for Waiver Wire. I'm excited, Casey. It's going to be a good one, and we should have a great show. You're coming from Pennsylvania. I'm here in La La Land. Let's talk waiver wire baseball. Before we start, Casey, how was your vacation? You were gone for a week. How was it?
It's a family trip. It's not a vacation. It was good. The kids had a good time, but when it's that much family in one place, I find it hard to call it relaxing. The kids had a blast. That's what matters. So it was a good trip.
A lot of baseball was going on. I don't know if you had your phone on. I don't know if you were paying attention at all, but there was a lot of baseball, a lot of stuff going on, which we'll cover today on our waiver wire show. Let's start quickly. Let's talk about catchers. I always get reprimanded from our producers saying I don't get into the waiver wire quick enough, but I'm starting quick today.
You are.
Let's talk catchers. Casey, who's your number one catcher this week?
Well, I think it's got to be Travis d'Arnaud in Atlanta. What's his face has been injured. I'm blanking on his name. I apologize.
Murphy, the Murph we call him. Yep.
Okay. So d'Arnaud's been getting all the starts there, and he's taking advantage. Batting last 2 weeks, a 280 average with 4 home runs. You can't really complain about that. So I'd put him up there while Murphy's hurt. The other guy who we know is a good hitter, we talked about him a lot last year, is Cal Raleigh in Seattle. He's still he mashes. He's going to hurt you an average here and there, but a guy who can hit 35 bombs from the catching position is not a bad guy to have.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Seattle to get hot. I mean, they have not played to their potential. And what usually happens, Seattle does in September, late August, they'll go on a big winning streak and they'll barely make the playoffs. That's my prediction. They did it last year and the year before. But, I mean, they have such a good team, and for some reason, you just can't put it all together. I don't know why Seattle can't do that, but hopefully this year they can. I like watching them play. They're fun. I think, KC, the hottest team in baseball, or the most, was the Reds, not anymore. They lost 3 in a row. But I got to watch Baltimore play yesterday against Cincinnati, and that team is for real. They have better hitters than Tampa Bay. You probably think I'm crazy, but I think their hitting's better than Tampa Bay, and I think they'll improve their pitching a lot during the All-Star break. They'll trade for some people, and they probably have the best closer in baseball. What do you think about Baltimore?
I think they're, I'm a farm system guy, and their farm system has been something I've been talking about all year. They're giving all their kids, it seems like, a chance to play this year. With Grayson Rodriguez, it was up and will be back up. You got.
We'll talk about him a little later in the show. Yeah, I got him on my list.
And now Jordan Henderson got called. They're just fun to watch.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, I mean, there's just
they play with a lot of energy. I don't know if they're better than Tampa Bay. They're more fun than Tampa Bay.
I just said their hitting is more. I think their hitting is better than Tampa Bay's.
It's hotter right now.
I just think 1 through 9, I'd rather have their hitters than Tampa Bay's, but that's me. We'll talk about it. It's up for debate. It's subjective. I get it. Let's talk first base. Casey, who do you like at first base this week? Who's your number one?
You are flying today. You're not wasting any time. Did you name any catchers?
Well, I'll give you one. I like, who plays. I like. He plays for Houston, Yanir Diaz. He's past 2 weeks. He's hitting 279. He has 4 home runs. Houston is a hot lineup, even though their best player is out for a while. But I still like their team. I think Valdez pitches today, which I think is one of the best pitchers in the American League. Flabber, but I like Diaz a lot just because he's in a hot lineup and he's hitting 279. It's 4 home runs. Past 2 weeks. What's wrong with that, Case? But yeah, that's the only one I would add from your two that you had. I like Cal Raleigh a lot. He's a streaker guy. He gets cold, he gets hot, he gets cold, he gets hot. I drop him, I add him. Right. So there you go. But I liked it. But let's talk first base, Casey. I got a guy behind me. His name's Joey Votto. Joey still bangs, as we say it in Cincinnati. He was on fire when he came off the IR last week. He had 2 home runs against against Atlanta. He's playing great right now. I don't know if he can keep it up.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you can't hear me, huh? I can hear myself.
Did you get disconnected? Uncle Ted, what up? Can you hear Ross? Can you let me know?
Hey, Ted, what's going on? Well, Casey, keep talking. Casey. No, I don't hear Casey.
My whole
Well,
world is falling apart here, Ross.
I'm going to keep talking. Joey Votto, since he got with the RE, he's hitting 278, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. I also like Andy Indinez. He's hitting 326, 2 home runs the past 2 weeks. And he's multi-position, Casey Scheinfeld, which I like a lot. Who at first base do you like? Let's keep going. Oh, I can't hear him. We're having technical issues here at MFSN. I'm not quite sure what is going on, but I will keep going because I think I'm live and I think you guys can hear me, so I will keep going. Second base.
Second base.
Ha-Sung Kim. Casey Scheinfeld, can you hear me?
I hear you fine. Do you hear me now?
Yeah. Han-Sung, anybody, let's go back to first base. Who at first base am I? I said Adonis and I said Votto. Who do you like at first base, Casey?
Well, Tristan Cassis is starting to hit now in Boston. He's been doing pretty well lately. This is a guy with a high ceiling coming in through the minors. He's somebody who can get you some average. He doesn't have incredible power, but he's been putting the ball in play. Jose Abreu's ownership has dropped down to 61%, so he's right on the cut line, but he's been starting to hit for average lately. Maybe he's figured something out. Those are 2 other guys I would look at.
Yeah, I saw Jose Abreu, 2 home runs the past 2 weeks, and he's starting to hit. It could be a sign they may not be trading at the deadline for a first baseman. Maybe they'll keep him. I don't know. We'll see what Houston does. I have no idea. I thought he was for sure gone, maybe even like designated for assignment guy. But I think he may keep his job now. Casey Scheinfeld. Let's talk second base. Ha-Sung Kim from the San Diego Padres. Past 2 weeks, case 318, 3 home runs. This guy's solid every week. This guy, I can't believe he's not over 60%. I just don't get it. But again, San Diego's probably the most disappointing team, I would say, with their salary and with all their stars. They're playing horrible baseball in San Diego. Horrible, Casey. Big disappointment down there. Any other second basemen you like that I should pick up?
We've talked about him a few times before. CJ Abrams in Washington. He's still only 20% owned. He's been streaky, but the last couple weeks, couple stolen bases, 7 runs scored, a 283 average. This guy is another one of those top prospects who it took him a little time to figure it out, or is taking him a little time to figure it out. Hopefully this is a sign that he is figuring out because he's incredibly talented.
Yeah, I agree. Second base for me this week was like the most shallow position for guys under 60%. There's like nobody like that really sticks out. Shortstop though, Casey, whole nother topic. Shortstop, plethora of players that are under 60% that are not picked up, which are unbelievable. Casey, give me your favorite one. Go.
Well, I'm going to name the guy who was called up yesterday by the Baltimore Orioles, and that's Jordan Westburg. This guy has some swing and miss in his game, but he had 18 home runs in the minors. He's going to play second, short, and third, I think, at various times in Baltimore. Baltimore's offense, as you mentioned, Ross, is crazy right now, and it's consistent, and it's driving in runs. This guy is somebody who could be a difference maker going the rest of the season for you if he gets the run. And all of a sudden you'll have Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westburg on one side of the infield, which it could be what you see in Baltimore for the next decade if they can keep them both there. It's just an exciting time for Baltimore. So he's number one. Number 2 for me is another kid who nobody's talking about. He's 36% owned. Is Michael Garcia in Kansas City, third baseman, shortstop. Past 2 weeks, 340, 6 stolen bases, 9 runs scored. I mean, if people paid attention to Kansas City, they would know this guy, if he plays like this, is going to be a top 10 rookie by the end of the year.
I agree. I mean, and let's talk Baltimore real quick. Medea, who is the worst batting player in Major League Baseball for the month of May all the way to June.
And he was number 1 ranked fantasy player through most of May, by the way.
Right. And in the month of June, he was the worst. I mean, big decline. Big decline. So I don't think he has a job anymore, or maybe he'll be playing other positions. I'm not quite sure what you do in Baltimore. We'll see. But in Kansas City, the problem with Kansas City is this. I mean, they just don't have anybody to hit around them. I mean,
Right.
that's the huge problem. I mean, it's their hitting is very skeptical, and their pitching is pretty bad. I can say that right now. Other guys that they thought would be great, like Singer and people like that, they're not great. They're mediocre, below average is best.
I just had to put that quote up there from Uncle Ted. Thanks for throwing me some love. But in fairness, Ezekiel Tovar has been really nice. And Uncle Ted, your calls have been pretty
And
insane.
Tovar, he plays in Colorado. It's 92 degrees today in Colorado, Casey. They play the Dodgers. So at game time, it's going to be 90 degrees.
Yep.
I mean, that ball is going to be flying out of there. I mean, it's going to be like a 12-10 game. I mean, you can quote me right now. I mean, you can check the stats. I mean, Freeman should have a field day today in Colorado with that kind of weather and the altitude. But Tovar, I just don't understand why he's not hired, Casey. I mean, he plays
again. I think it's a market. He's not a big name. A lot of people know names and don't study the kind of the smaller names that can make a difference. Tovar, to anybody who's fantasy wise like us and Uncle Ted and some of the other listeners, we've talked about him since the preseason in terms of his potential and what he could mean being in Colorado. But look, this is a team that's how many games under 500 right now? Are they the worst record in baseball right now? I think
they're not the worst. No, there's a team called Kansas City that's worse.
Is it worse? But
they're
the worst record in the National League. So
I mean, they're the worst record.
People don't pay attention to them, and that's who's the second-ranked shortstop in fantasy baseball over the last 2 weeks. Do you know?
Royce Lewis.
Ellie De La Cruz. He's 93% owned already. I only bring him up not because he's a waiver wire pickup, but because you're a Reds guy, and this has been like one of your favorites, one of your man crushes since the preseason.
Oh, he for the cycle of the weekend, Casey. I mean,
since Eric Davis.
I mean, he has the same number as Eric Davis, and this guy is so fast, so good, and he hasn't even came close to hitting his potential yet. I mean, his ceiling is crazy.
As Michael Jordan would say, the ceiling is the roof.
Is the roof, and the roof is on fire. And this guy, I mean, Ellie De La Cruz is the most exciting player in baseball. I mean, this guy is making people watch the Reds play, which is great.
Yeah, now that O'Neal Cruz, I mean, it's ironic because he and O'Neal Cruz are similar players, and O'Neal Cruz was hurt, so who steps in and becomes the most exciting player, but his kind of carbon copy with better plate discipline.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about the youth movement, Cincinnati's a great example. I mean,
another one, yeah.
It's like, I don't know how many rookies have been brought up this year. I have to count for the next show, but it has to be over 10.
They just called up 2 yesterday.
I know. I sent it to you. Remember, I sent them to you. I sent you the names. Honestly, I didn't.
I wasn't familiar with them either. I'm just, I mean, I'm happy for Joey Votto because he is doing well and he's coming back and he's always been a likable enough player. But I feel terrible for Christian Encarnacion Strand, who has been proven time and time again he doesn't belong in the minor leagues, but he's not going to get called up. So,
well, it's not that. Again,
Uncle Ted agrees with me.
We all like him, and I have a friend that played college baseball with him, and he's a very nice guy. He's very shy. Talking about Encarnacion Strand, but the thing about him is that there's no room unless they do some trades during the All-Star break. There's really no room for the guy. I mean, we really don't have it. And to bring him up just to put him on the bench or platoon once or twice a week is not really fair.
No, I agree.
So I'd rather have him down in the minors. The Reds will. I hate to say it, but I think they're going to trade Jonathan India, and to make room for one of the youth guys and get a starting pitcher, and get a starting pitcher. I think they should do that. As much as I like Jonathan India, Rookie of the Year, I get it. Great hair too, but doesn't matter. They need a starting. They need a starting. A starting pitcher, and you can't trade junk for a good starting pitcher. It's not going to happen.
Uncle Ted wants to point out that AAA has CES play in the outfield now, so maybe they're trying to find another place for him. But again, there's also the universal DH now, so that opens up another spot.
It does. But I see the Reds making some maneuvers, and I think he'll be brought up after the All-Star break. You heard it from me first, Ross the Boss. Royce Lewis is still not over 60%, Casey. In the past 2 weeks, he's 350, and he has 2 home runs the past 2 weeks. I don't understand. Another one, I can't comprehend why
Well, he's
somebody
been
wouldn't
hurt
want.
so many times. People are gun
Yeah,
shy because he's been
yes, you're right.
cold and hot and called up and sent down, and so people are a little reluctant to use a bench spot on him.
I guess. I mean, again, he's like part of the youth movement. He plays on a good team actually, and I would think somebody would pick him up and drop some of the shortstops that are not performing well. Let's talk third base. Casey Scheinfeld. Who's your number one third baseman?
I mean, a lot of the guys we've mentioned, Royce Lewis, played both positions, Michael Garcia, but just as a third baseman, I think your boy, the Candyman, is again on one of those streaks where he's certainly rosterable and playable. Last 2 weeks, 300 average, 2 home runs, 1 stolen base. He is streaky, but he plays every day, and he usually bats at a good position in the lineup. So there's not a lot on the third base waiver wire.
I do like, the Angels. You were gone. I don't. You don't even. Saturday night they scored 25 runs in Colorado.
I saw that. It was crazy.
I saw that, but I mean, everybody had hits and home runs. I mean, it was like they scored 18, I think 13 runs in 1 inning, I believe. It was a new Angel record. I mean, it was like unbelievable. One of the guys that led the Chargers, Brandon Drury, used to be a Red Padre, he's a journeyman in lore. But in the past 2 weeks, he's been hitting 378, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, Casey. I know a lot probably happened on Saturday night, but doesn't matter. Brandon plays a few positions, Brandon Drury. I mean, what do you think about him picking him up to play third base?
Hey, especially with all the injuries they have in LA or the Anaheim Angels, they have.
No, it's Los Angeles Angels.
Of Anaheim.
He still use the Anaheim name.
Neto is hurt. So Rendon is banged up. So there's a lot
of Rendon's on the IR.
Right. So there's a lot of opportunities for playing time for him. So I don't think it's a bad pickup at all. I don't know if I see it as sustainable for him.
Okay, let's talk about the Angels a little bit. I want to talk about Ohtani with you.
Oh my gosh.
He's leading the league in RBIs. He's
third in strikeouts.
He's third in strikeouts. His pitching, I think he's the highest rated pitcher in baseball. One of them. I mean, strikeouts per 9, he leads the league. I mean, he's leading the league in a lot of stats on both fielding, on hitting and pitching. Is he your Cy Young and MVP this year in the American League?
Wow. Cy Young and MVP. I think he's my MVP. Cy Young. Wow.
Casey, he's leading the league in so many.
Give me a couple minutes to think about
it. I'll let you think about it. You don't have to answer me right now. You can answer me the next week. It's not a quick quiz question.
Because I still think Shane McClanahan has been amazing.
Yeah, but he's hurt. He hurt himself. I don't know how long he's out for.
Up. Joe Ryan in Minnesota has been crazy.
Doesn't have the stats like Ohtani. You check it out. We'll get back to you.
For fantasy value, his pitching stats are actually, he has more points fantasy wise than Ohtani. Ohtani only has 6 wins to Ryan's 8. Now Ohtani has 17 more strikeouts, but WHIP and ERA, Ryan is better at both. The only thing he's better than, and he hasn't thrown as many innings as Ryan. So the only thing Ohtani's better at is strikeouts.
How much money? I say Ohtani gets $700 million contract. What do you think?
I think it'll be somewhere in the range of 12 years, 600 million.
I say 700. I think you're wrong. I think 700 because he needs an extra 100 million to buy that candy bar that always wanted. I think.
There you go. But no, I mean he's gonna break the bank because. Oh wait, we have a question. I apologize.
Casey apologizes.
Would you drop Gunnar Henderson for Royce Lewis? Jamal wants to know.
No,
I don't think so.
No.
I like Royce Lewis, and he's going to give you speed compared to Gunnar Henderson. But Gunnar plays is going to give you everything with the bat and more power.
And Gunnar started out so slow, and he's already, I think his average is close to 250 now, and he's starting to hit home runs. And that Baltimore team, compared to the Twins, it's like night and day with the hitting. I'd rather have a Baltimore Oriole than a lot of other teams in the American League. They're my favorite hitting team right now to watch. It used to be Texas, but now I moved over to Baltimore. just
Yeah.
because I feel that lineup bringing up these young studs is just a lot better now.
This is why he's the MVP, though. Ohtani might be the best hitter in baseball right now.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, the American League. He has the American League MVP right now by Casey Scheinfeld. Trust me.
But
Casey's
Cy
not
Young,
going
I don't know if I'd give him the Cy Young.
Okay, Casey's skeptical in the Cy Young. He has a big start tonight. Tonight he has a big start, and he's.
You mean the White Sox? I don't think that's a big start. Although Luis Robert is right now hitting the ball as well as anybody in the outfield, but
yeah, he'll have 10 Ks. I think he'll mow down
Sure.
a bunch of White Sox tonight. You're right about that. It should be an Angels victory. The Angels won last night on a wild pitch to win the game in the ninth inning.
I saw that.
It.
How Grandal didn't stop that is crazy.
No, horrible. Let's talk outfielders. Casey Scheinfeld. Name some outfielders you like. Go.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. Just like go.
It is a lot of pressure.
I think I'm going to talk about one of your Reds. TJ Friedl is still only 34% owned. He's batting leadoff for the Reds. They're great. They're hitting the ball well. He's got a 290 average with 6 stolen bases in the last 2 weeks. He's playing really well. He's only 34%. And then Jake Fraley is only 61%. So he doesn't make our 60 and under, but he's close enough. And he's got a 333 average with 4 home runs in the last 2 weeks. Those are 2 guys who are hitting the ball well. And then you got Jake McCarthy in Arizona, who seems to have figured it out after losing kind of the shine on his prospect status. He's hitting the ball well in Arizona, giving them 2 good outfielders with Corbin Carroll and Jake McCarthy.
Yeah, McCarthy the past 2 weeks, 311 Casey, 4 stolen bases in 2 weeks, which is what you want out of your outfielder with stolen bases. I mean, that guy loves to run, and he was injured for a lot of the year. Now he's back and he's hitting really well. And I still think the Diamondbacks will win that division. How about that?
All right,
how about that, Casey?
You want to talk about a little bit of hyperbole? Look what Uncle Ted had to say to you here.
Billy McKinney, the journeyman that no one has who. If he walked into a restaurant in New York City, no one would know
they would
who the
think
guy
he was applying for a job. But yet,
if he walks in the stadium, they would give him a broom. They have no idea he's a player. No, he was the most unrecognizable player in New York City for sure. Him and Bauer
replacing Aaron Judge. Look,
I
don't think anybody in New York is hitting all that well. So hell, I think Ross could replace Aaron Judge at this part. Uncle Ted, I like you a lot, and you're a smart fantasy guy, and I know that. But for the love of God, Aaron Hicks should never, ever be near any fantasy roster ever. He should. I know he's hitting the ball okay right now. I will bet right now by the end of July he's hitting below the Mendoza line.
He's the worst.
He is
Major League Baseball player I've seen in many
Hunter
years.
Dozier.
How dare you make fun of my? Dan. First of all, Dan doesn't like Hunter Dozier or Ian Happ, and Ian Happ's having a pretty good year this year, so we have to talk to Dan about that quickly. But yes, Aaron Hicks should not be in the same sentence ever with Aaron Judge, or ever be compared to Aaron Judge. I mean,
Uncle
Hicks
Ted, I agree. It was funny. But if Aaron Hicks is on one of your rosters, I've lost a lot of respect for your fantasy skill. But I know you're good. I joke.
So a team that we don't talk about that much at all, the Detroit Tigers, for many reasons,
Yeah, they don't really have anybody.
They have an outfielder that I actually had to look up and just find out. I Wikipedia'd him. I actually I know all about him now. Is Matt Vierling, and he's hitting KC 419 the past 2 weeks with 3 home runs. And this guy, I couldn't point him out in a police lineup. I have no idea what he looks like. But now I do. I did my research. How about that?
He was
it could be a nice streaker. It could be a nice guy. If you need an outfielder, one of your guys went down, pick up for a week, see what he does. Detroit won last night. They knocked off Texas, so they're not that bad out of a team. They're up and down, Detroit. I mean, they're like 5 games out of the play. They're 5 games out of the division. I mean, they're not like in the cellar. They're not like a joke of the. They can easily win that division. It's only 5 games separating them. So I think that's not a bad pickup if you're desperate for an outfielder. It's kind of like a guy that is hot, and his team is not that bad of a hitting team. I think Detroit just is still figuring it out, and they do need some starting pitching, but he could be good. Another guy, Mickey Moniak of the
Moniak.
Angels.
Yeah.
Moniak. Casey, 406 the past 2 weeks, 2 home runs. Not bad for a guy that I can't pronounce his last name. Any other outfielders that we're missing?
Oh
That
my
you think?
gosh, Uncle Ted.
Tommy Pham
I'm gonna let
again?
Ross take this one.
Okay, every season
I think it's April 1st.
we bring up Tommy Pham every year, Casey. He's always on somebody's list.
I know, but Uncle
And
Ted is, I think, saying it as a joke. I got to be honest.
what are his stats the past 2 weeks? Is it something I'm missing?
Oh, he might have been doing well the last 2 weeks. Let's see.
Tommy Pham's the guy.
Last 2 weeks, we got 277, 1 home run, 2 stolen bases.
Okay, so there you go. That's Tommy Pham for you. He'll 270. He'll have 1 home run maybe once a week, and he may steal you a base here and there. So you got to be really desperate to pick him up. I mean, I don't recommend it. He's not going to help your team that much.
I think it would have to be a 7 outfield league for me.
Yeah. I mean, Casey and I have been around Tommy. I think both of us had him last year. And we dropped him quickly.
Quicker than.
But again, Tommy Pham, we don't recommend that. Let's go to starting pitching, and I see you picked up one of the pitchers I've been recommending the past 2 weeks.
Oh, who's that?
Mr. Brian Bello.
Yep, I picked up Bello about a month ago. He's been.
Oh, you did? Okay, so Bello, again, I talk about him every week because the guy hasn't slowed down. I mean, he's 2-0 the past 2 weeks, and his ERA is like 1.32. I mean, this guy for the Red Sox, who was their ace in Pawtucket last year in their minors. I mean, he's had a horrible April, but now this guy figured it out. And if he's available in your league, he's available in like 70% of the leagues.
Yeah.
I suggest you pick him up because I don't see this guy slowing down.
Who's figured it out? And now he's 93% roster, but Blake Snell the last couple of weeks has just been.
Oh, Casey, 12 strikeouts a game. I mean, this guy is just
crazy.
I mean, he's been just mowing people down. I mean, Snell, one of the hottest pitchers in the National League. I mean, this guy is just a machine. It's just too bad his team's not playing well, but he's playing great, and he could be an all-star too. I mean, he's just been on such a run.
Which, considering like how bad he was the first 8 weeks of the season, is crazy.
Yeah, it could be. Do you think? Let me ask you a question. Do you think the Padres, because they're playing so bad, and I don't think they'll make the playoffs, do you think they'll get rid of some of their star players?
I don't think so. I don't think they'll sign Soto. I think that would be the easiest way for them to do it, because who are they going to trade? I mean, Darvish, they can't trade Bogarts. They just signed him. Machado, they just re-signed. Tatis, I don't think anybody would touch. So are you talking Blake? I mean, it's either Blake,
Musgrove, maybe Darvish. Some of their starters. Musgrove's
kind of old.
Snell, some of these guys are performing in the high capacity right now. It's just a question, because they do have some, people need pitching, and the Padres do have some good pitchers. We have a question from Amol. Did I say it right, Case?
I think so.
What should I be doing with Eli De La Cruz? I have Jeremy Pena on my bench. I would get rid of Pena and start.
I would trade him. Yeah.
You would trade Cruz?
Or no, Pena? I would trade Pena. You said I get.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what Pena's doing this year, but again, Eli De La Cruz, people like, oh, he's on the high right now, I want to trade him. No, you don't want to trade him. He's just going to get better. I mean, this guy is a game changer in your fantasy league. I mean, this guy does everything except like clean up after dinner. I mean,
if you can get, I mean, Pena's been kind of mediocre at best this year. So I don't know how much you can get for him. Obviously, he was great in the playoffs last year and had a good rookie year, so his name might carry some value. But he's, at this point, I wouldn't even be opposed to him being on the waiver wire if you can't.
Case, I have a question for you. Would you say Eli De La Cruz is the number one keeper in fantasy baseball leagues for next season?
No.
So if you had your pick of any player in Major League Baseball to keep, Eli would not be your number one. Who's your number one?
Ronald Acuna Jr.
I like that. Okay, I can't argue.
No, and I'm not saying Ellie's not a top 5 right now, especially if he can maintain this. Look, it's June 27th. He could be hitting 208 by August 27th, and then it's not the same question. We've seen what happens to rookie hitters. You're notorious, like your famous stance.
I agree. I agree. There's just so much hype on this guy, and there's so much press, and
that's
you
a good
turn
one
on
too, by the way.
ESPN. You turn on ESPN. The only time they show baseball is for highlights. They never talk about players.
I like your idea too. I think Corbin Carroll is probably up there too for keepers right now.
Well, Corbin Carroll's Rookie of the Year. This guy's doing everything everybody says he's going to do. He did. And yeah, I mean, I love the kid just because his mom takes him to the stadium.
I know he's the Rookie of the Year and lives at home.
I love how his mom does his laundry and his mom drops him off and picks him up after school.
My mom would do my laundry still. All right.
Me too. I miss those days. Okay, let's talk pitchers, Casey.
Well, you mentioned Brian Bayo. That's obviously a big one. Brian Wu in Seattle has been pitching great.
Wu pitches tonight, and his ERA's. Yeah. I agree with you. His ERA is horrible, but this guy has been lights out, striking people out the past couple starts. And you're 100% right. Don't let the ERA fool you. This guy Wu, jump on the train now because that Wu train is taking off today.
Somebody who I was really high on in the preseason, tried to get him in my drafts, couldn't, but then he kind of struggled the first month and a half of the season. Reed Detmers back in Anaheim, LA of Anaheim.
We understand. In Anaheim, it's easier.
He's pitching the way I thought he would at the beginning of the year. The last few weeks, he's only 57% owned. I think this is a guy who can sustain it. He's got the stuff. He gets the strikeouts, manages to keep his whip low. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. So he might be my top under 60% pitcher pickup right now. And then the other one I'm going to mention is Taijuan Walker. I've talked about him a couple times in the past few weeks. He just continues to pitch well. Last 2 weeks, 14 innings, 2 wins, 1.29 ERA, 0.79 whip, almost a strikeout per inning. Philadelphia's playing better baseball, going to get him some wins too. So he can.
I don't trust Philadelphia at all. I think their hitters are either ice or hot. I mean, they just can't put it together in Philadelphia this year. I know you live nearby, Casey, but I'm sorry to say that they're one of the most disappointing teams this year.
Yeah, but that's Casey, what they said.
Casey, who's the hottest?
Hey, I'm going to say this. I'm not a Phillies fan, but at this point last year, they were saying the Phillies were one of the most disappointing teams in baseball, and they made it to the World Series. So yes, they're disappointing, but when you got 4 wild card teams or whatever it is now, like you don't have to play great the whole year. They can take the LA Laker approach, the LeBron James approach to the regular season. Let's rest every third day so that I'm feeling better come the finals.
Casey, who's the hottest starting pitcher right now in the National League who hasn't given up a run in the past 2 starts? In the past, has not given up a run the past 2 starts. He's 2-0 the past 2 starts, has not given up a run, and he plays for the Milwaukee Brewers. His name's Wade Miley.
Yeah, but he's not the hot. Yuri Perez is a much better pitcher the last.
I agree. I just said
the hottest pitcher.
I know, but Perez has given up a few runs here and there, but he's strikeouts. I mean, this guy's off the charts with strikeouts. Perez is unbelievable. They don't have to sell me. I love the Marlins. I love what they're doing down there, and I think they're 1 or 2 hitters away from winning that division. I think they're that good. Well, yeah. I don't know if they'll beat out Atlanta, but I think they'll make the playoffs. But I like the Marlins, what they're doing that there. I think it's a big youth movement. I love Jesus Sanchez. I love that whole team. And your guy Jazz is back today.
Is he coming back? Thank God.
Is back today. You heard from me first, Ross the Boss. So let's talk Wade Miley. 2-0, Casey Scheinfeld. 0.0 ERA in 2 starts. That's your GPA in college. And I this guy's a journeyman. I know you're going to give me a whole lecture about Wade Miley. I know who he is. I get it. But this guy's he's just a streaker. I mean, there's a guy that if you pick him up, start him ASAP because it's not going to last. But I do like him a lot. Casey, I only have 1 relief pitcher on my list.
Yeah, I only have 1 too. I only have one.
So why don't you say it and tell us why?
Well, the new closer of the last 2 weeks in St. Louis is Jordan Hicks.
Oh, I have a different one. That's great. You say Jordan, I'll say somebody else. Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Last 2 weeks, 5 innings, 4 saves. He's only 50% owned. 4 saves, 9 Ks in 5 innings with less than a 0.53 whip. I mean, this is a kid who 3 years ago was kind of the anointed closer of the year to be with his 103-mile-an-hour fastball. So if he's learned how to pitch and he gets that job because we all know that their bullpen has been pretty shaky, I would pick up Jordan Hicks as quickly as possible.
I mentioned Jordan Hicks last week when you were on vacation with Dr. Dan Ratner, just because, as you know, I hate the Cardinals. I can't stand that team. I hate their fans. I hate everything about that. Everything about St. Louis I can't stand.
Wow.
But
Tell us how you really feel.
But I do like Jordan Hicks just because he has a live arm and he throws over 100. I love closers like that. Another guy that I love that people are starting to pick up is Scott McGough of Arizona. 4 saves the past 2 weeks. His ERA, your GPA in college, 0.00. Unbelievable.
Uncle Ted agrees with you.
I mean, unbelievable stuff, Uncle Ted. I saw this guy pitch, and he's a flamethrower, but he also loves that slider, which I love too. But this guy's the real deal. In Arizona, they're not going anywhere. People say, "Oh, they're just they'll be burning out soon." They're not. Their team is young and hungry. Christian Walker. I know he's over 60, I know he's over 60%, but this guy is just a home run machine. And this Arizona team in the playoffs, and they have Zach Gallen, to me, is the Cy Young in the National League. You can argue with me all you want with all your other trash pitchers you want to bring up, but Zach Gallen, if I could pick any pitcher to pitch in an all-star game to start, it'd be Zach Gallen. I mean, he pitches tonight too. Got a lot of Kershaw pitches tonight. Gallen's pitching tonight. Ohtani pitches tonight. Valdez is pitching tonight. Your guy in Cincinnati that you told me to pick up is pitching tonight. Abbott.
Yep.
Abbott, your guy Kevin Abbott. I mean, so all these great pitchers are pitching tonight. It should be a great night to watch baseball, Casey. You can watch any baseball tonight at all?
Tonight. Yeah, I'll watch some tonight. I don't know
your Yankees play, I think. Are they in Oakland tonight? Is that where
they're not very fun to watch right now. So
yeah, but I think they play Oakland. I think Brito pitches against Blackburn. I believe you guys are. I think if you want to watch them, you got to stay up late, Casey Scheinfeld. You have to be up at 10:30.
Yeah, I'm not good at that.
I'll call you. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm Ross.
Yeah,
boss.
They play at Oakland. So before we go real quick, yeah. I wouldn't be me if I didn't name some prospects. Obviously,
I love it. Oh yeah, I'm going to give you credit. Wait. You know, you've been talking about that kid that was brought up, Jordan
Westburg.
Yeah, Westburg. I mean, you nailed him, and this guy's the talk of the whole Major League Baseball today and yesterday. We'll see how he does the next week, but I mean, you've been doing great with your prospects. Tell me some prospects I should pick up.
Well, one of the and I'll Uncle Ted and I are big on prospects, so I'll throw him some love there too. Gavin Williams came up last week and pitched.
He pitches tonight. Another guy that pitches tonight.
Emmett Sheehan has been pitching well. He got the call.
Yep, I watched
Henry Davis came up for Pittsburgh last week.
Yep.
You got Jordan Westburg. The next round is going to be Sal Frelick, I think, in Milwaukee, outfielder. Not going to be a power tool, but he's a high hit tool, high speed. So he'll give you runs scored, average, and stolen bases. And I know Jordan Westburg got called up, and he's certainly worthy of getting called up. I love Colton Cowser in Baltimore still. I don't know why he's not up. He's more of your traditional 5-tool kind of guy. When he gets the call, I think he'll stay up too to make that Baltimore team even more exciting. Obviously, Christian Encarnacion Strand we talked about. There's a kid in Tampa Bay, Jonathan Aranda, who struggled a little bit to start the season, but lately he's raised his average all the way up to 340 from 267, over a 1,000 OPS this year, almost as many walks as strikeouts. Brandon Lau has been terrible, and now he's hurt. Taylor Walls has come crashing down as we all thought he would. So they're in kind of a rut offensively. If you need a second baseman, I would also stash Jonathan Aranda.
I love it. And the funny thing was, every time you say all these names, the first one that picks them all up is Dr. Dan Ratner. He goes to his computer and he just listens to our show and he picks everybody up he says. So it's like whatever we say here, he does. It's like he's like a robot. It's unbelievable. Casey, great job. I'll see you next week. We have a show on Thursday at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern.
I think that'll just be the two of us this time too.
It'll be Dr. Dan. You and I will talk more. We won't talk much about waiver wire, but we'll talk more about baseball and we'll talk about maybe Cy Young MVP. You can give me your
the
Cy Young.
mid-season kind of awards.
You can give me your Cy Young and American League pick. I'll give you 2 days to think about it. But we'll talk about some hot topics in baseball. I'm Ross the Boss. That's KC Vlad to the Bone Shine Fold. We'll see you.